Welcome to the Multifamily Zone, where business meets family. We explore what the entrepreneur life looks like from the family perspective. Now, here are your hosts, Julia and Gino Barbaro.
Hey everyone, this is Julia Barbaro, host of the Multifamily Zone podcast. I'm here with the co-founder of Jake and Gino, my husband and co-host, Gino Barbaro.
Julia,
hey,
we've got a great guest today.
We do.
Guest told me that his wife is just like you. So
right.
that's going to be an interesting little deep dive in. Our guest today is Rick Sapio. Since 1994, Rick has been CEO of MCA, an investment bank holding company, which has made more than 100 investments. Since 2003, Rick has been a co-founder of Mutual Capital Partners, a PE firm with 3 funds. Rick's life purpose, I love this, is to inspire entrepreneurship, which led Rick to start Business Finishing School, a virtual learning platform designed to help businesses scale quickly and profitably, which has helped thousands of people in the past 10 years. Rick learned that business growth and success are accelerated when a key few principles are applied. He created these foundational business principles that form the frame of BFS to help successful people become more grounded and focused in their business and personal lives. He is a 1987 graduate of Rutgers University with a BS in industrial engineering and resides in Dallas, Texas with his wife and their 4 young children. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Hey, thanks for having me. I got news for you, Gino. When I said that this is a big reveal that we married the same girl, we actually did. So we're coming clean on that right now.
So in other words, we both married up, is what you're saying, and we got real lucky, right?
The exact same girl.
She puts up with your stuff, doesn't she, your woman? Huh?
That's great.
I want everyone to hear your story because there's a lot of people out there in life. I love your family dinner placemat. We're going to go through that. My wife is reading it before and she's like, wow, this is good. I'm going to use this for a story. I'm going to use this for a podcast. Yeah. So there's so many golden nuggets there, but the responsibility to me resonates more than anything because everyone's making excuses nowadays. And you didn't have an easy life growing up. I mean, share your story with the listeners out there.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. So I'm the 7th of 10 kids that my mother had. She had 5 boys and 5 girls. And when I was a baby, you could just imagine the 4-year-old of the house was the leader of the house. I had this 4-year-old brother, Francesco. And anyway, Frankie, long story short, he got sick. And when I was a baby, Frankie died at the age of 4. And my mother had a massive nervous breakdown. It was bad. And she really never recovered from that. And I'll get into that a little bit more. We lived in North Jersey, right outside Manhattan, and I could see Manhattan growing up. We lived in an Italian neighborhood. And when I was 11, my dad came home. He was the breadwinner. I was 11. We're sitting around the table, and I just remember like it was yesterday. And he said, "Listen, you know how I've been complaining about my bad back? Well, it turns out I went to the doctor today and I have cancer." And at that meeting with the doctor, the very first meeting, they gave him 6 weeks to live. And so he basically had a family meeting and said, "Listen, since I have 6 weeks to live, I got to teach you about life." And he ended up going on this extreme regimen. And I know a lot about natural cures as a result of this, but he ended up living 2.5 years. So I got 2.5 years with my dad. And when he died, my mother's mental health got really bad. So I can honestly say I never had a sane conversation with my mother. It was all the crazy stuff. Not to get too dramatic, but the suicide attempts and all that. But so from the age of 13, I didn't have any parents. So I want to fast forward till today. This is now 46 years, I think, since my dad died. 45 years. 45 years. And in those intervening 45 years, all of us got married and all of us had kids. And there's no divorces in 230 years of marriage between my siblings, no divorces. And you say, how does that happen? It happens because independence was forced on us and none of it was easy. We all had to pay our way through college. We all had to earn our way. And today parents think it's their job to put a pillow under their kid's ass in case they fall down. And it's their job to drive them all around the country because of stupid travel sports that teach nothing. And I say to my wife, our kids are now 6, 8, 10, and 12. We have one job: to create independent, God-fearing, entrepreneurial earners, period. And that's what my dad said to me in those 2.5 years that he was sick. And I got to tell you, the greatest gift that my dad gave me, and the greatest gift I'm giving my kids, and the greatest gift that you're giving your six,
Mm-hmm.
is hopefully the gift of independence.
Yeah.
Independent, not, I can do anything type of independence, but I know how to make money. I know how to take care of myself. I know how to wipe my ass.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know how to, earn, save money, keep a budget. I loved watching your videos. And so my wife and I, and this will be my final comment on this, every decision I make as a parent with my wife is what is going to make them independent at 18.
Mm-hmm.
It's not giving them a cell phone. It's not giving them a car. It's not putting them in travel sports so they can hang around with spoiled brats. It's not having them in the back seat of the car while I drive around. It's doing things to make them independent. One thing that we did is my daughter just yesterday was saying, Daddy, when am I going to get a house? We bought a house down the street, a rental property, and the kids get to earn money by
Mm-hmm.
raking it and collecting the rent and doing all that. And they're like, well, is it our house? And I go, no, 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 no. You don't get an inheritance from mom and dad. No one in our family gets an inheritance. You don't get college. You don't get anything. You get to earn money
Mhm.
and you get an education. So that's it.
I got to share two
Love that.
stories quickly with you because the first one, my son is 18 years old. About 6 months ago, he starts working with Rand Partners. He's underwriting deals. And when you start underwriting deals, it's a challenging thing when you're 18 years old. But he was slacking off a little bit. And the easiest thing for a parent like me to do is when you see your child in stress, in pain, you want to give them the answers. And he kept going. Mikey T's the head of Rand Partners kept saying, Gino, your son's struggling a little bit, and I didn't give him the answers. And one night he came to me all frustrated, about to cry. And I'm like, Mike, that's how it is in life. Figure it out. I can help you on structuring it if you have certain questions, but I'm not going to teach you. 3 months later, 2 weeks ago, we shot a video on doing rent comps in an area. So he progressed from not knowing what the hell he was doing to struggling. And as a parent, it's the hardest thing to pull back and to say, you know what? I am not going to help you out. I'm going to let you figure it out. I can help you on the high level points. If you have any intelligent questions, bring them to me. And that's what college should be all about, preparing yourself. And I was proud of myself because that was the hardest thing for me to do, is to sit back and not do anything, very difficult. And
Yeah.
I think one other story that I like to share with you also is I totally agree with that idea. My kids now are investing in our deals. I'm giving them 1% of the deals, 2%. If they can bring $5,000, I'll pull money out of their account, put it into their savings account without them knowing. That's how I'm saving for college.
Mhm.
And now it's ironic. In the very beginning, 2 years ago, my son didn't know what an owner draw was. Now he's asking, Dad, what are the draws? What are the expenses this month? When they have
Yep.
skin in the game. And then on top of that, he's like, Dad, can I borrow money from you? A little owner financing. He's thinking creatively now. I would joke around about it, but a year ago, I could have had that conversation with him. Now that they have skin in the game and they see the long game, they see what you do, it's a whole different mind shift. And it's a great way. I took him down to a property we closed on 3 weeks ago. We closed on a small 48-unit deal. They're both going to have 1% in the deal, but they both went down there. They both saw what was going on in the property. My daughter had some really great questions. She's like, Dad, you're going to buy this property. You're going to raise the rents on these people. What's going to happen? I said, Gabriella, that's one reason we will raise the rents, but look at how they're living. They're living in squalor. There's no maintenance over here. They're living in a bad product. We're going to actually raise the level of the product. We're going to give them a lot more services, but obviously the marketplace is going to dictate where those rents are going, because she's looking at it from a Catholic perspective. Well, these people can't afford it. What are they going to do? But as a business person, you're not just out there raising prices, you're offering a service. So for her, having her seat from that perspective and not just from the W-2 perspective was amazing for me. So,
Rick, I actually am learning a lot from you, because I could tell you that me as the mom, I'm not sure how your wife is, but it pains me to watch the kids suffer. It pains me to see them struggle. And it takes all of me to say, I'm not going to help them. I'm going to let them figure it out. But at the same time, we also have to guide them in that direction of independence. And it's so important. So how do you and your wife guide them in that, where it's like, you don't have to help at some point, because we can't just let them
Yeah.
go. So
Well,
let's talk
I
about
think,
that a little bit.
well, it's funny that Gino's talking about different events that are happening in the children's lives, and you're asking a question about events. And I think most of us live business lives like an event happens. When I'm 18, this happens, or my dad lets me in the business or whatever. But I think the thing that everybody misses is the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife and I, for example, I know I told you this when I met you, our first date was on a Monday night at 7:30. And so for 15 years, 15, yes, it's 15 now, every Monday night at 7:30, we have date night and we go out to dinner. and we have dinner with the family at 6, and then at 7:30 we go out. And we're recording this on a Monday, so I'm excited about date night. um, Everything in our family is a rhythm.
Mhm.
And so what happens is we have family meeting rhythm every Sunday at 4 o'clock. We have 7 nights a week, we have dinner with our family, and we talk about all these things.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And the thing that goes along with rhythms is permanence.
Yeah.
So, you could say what you want about church or the Catholic
Mhm.
Church or whatever, but they set a nice rhythm.
Mhm.
Every Sunday you come
Yeah.
to mass. So
Mhm.
everything in our family is a permanent rhythm. And so the permanent rhythm in our family is every Sunday you get paid. And since my oldest was 2 years old, he gets paid for his chores. The chores go into the bank. We have a piggy bank that has 4 compartments: saving, investing, spending, and giving.
Mhm.
And those 4 go into his bank. And every single dollar that he has, I don't have it to show you, but the kids have a checklist of all their items. Then they get paid an amount of money. They have to fill it out on Sunday, give it to me. So it trains them on, I
Mhm.
do an activity, I account for that activity, I get paid for it, and then it goes into the bank. And then once a year, it goes from the investing side to a stock account. Now, having said all that, the rhythm part is really important, Gino. So had you had every Sunday at 4 o'clock
Mhm.
talking about to your son about these things, then what happens is it's baked into his
Yeah.
DNA.
Mhm.
Just like now, most couples, 99.9%, when you want to go out this week, oh, we can't go out
Yes.
this week. We don't
Mhm.
have a babysitter. But when it's baked into the DNA of your family, our kids are actually excited now about date night
Mhm.
because they know God first, mom and dad second,
Mhm.
family unit third, and kids, you're fourth. You're way
Yes.
down here.
Yeah.
And and they know they're way down
Yeah.
there. But you know what? When they're way down there, they're more confident
Yeah.
because mom and dad are strong. What
Mhm.
happens in most families? Kids are
Kids
first in
come
their
first.
activities. Of course, let's
Mhm.
destroy the family rituals. No
Mhm.
dinner. We got sports. That's way more important. So anyway, um, I just wanted to stress that
Mhm.
rhythms and permanence. So last comment on that. My kids, they wanted to start swimming. I go, okay, you're Sapio. If you're going to swim, it's permanent. That means every summer because we don't quit anything.
Mhm.
And so they have some permanent things like a musical instrument,
Mhm.
playing the piano, right? Swimming, karate, and Italian. We speak Italian at home, so I taught them a
Yay.
foreign language. And so when you have permanence and rhythms, I just think it changes everything.
Yeah, that is such good advice. I actually love that.
Oh, Rick,
You
you're killing me
Yeah,
now
this I
because
have a lot of ideas now. And I'm gonna
But
actually
but
after this
I,
podcast, I am writing all this down.
I
I'm
have to
excited.
cheat. I cheated. I have to admit this. I got married at 43, right? I'm 57 now. And I had 44 nieces and nephews before I got married. I got to see all the stupid
Okay,
shit my
sure.
family did.
But that's how
And
we learn, right? We learn from other people's mistakes.
what do you think my siblings said when I pulled out? I said, you know what? Daddy died, and before Daddy died, he taught us this.
Mm,
hmm
I'm gonna write it down.
that's
So we've got
awesome.
the family placement with there
Yep.
you go.
hmm
Everything the family stands for is right there. And my
Yes.
siblings like that's stupid. They're not gonna
Mm-hmm.
do it. And why don't you have cell phones? And they criticize us to this day, but our kids are
Mm-hmm.
thriving. So
So
Yes, that's
that's
beautiful.
important. Let me transition this into business because
Mm-hmm.
if you can do this from a business perspective, you're giving the business structure, discipline. Your employees feel safe because you know that there's rhythms going on. We have our cadence of accountability. What I love on here, you have the core values. How did you come up with your core values for your family?
So when our first son, Luciano is actually his name, he was
That's
cooking in the oven. I said to my wife, honey, no male lasted to age 50 in our family. So I don't know if I'm going to last. Let's write everything down. So for a year, we talked about this. And as I said before, once we finished it, not one word on this thing changed. It's been permanent. And I
mm-hmm.
think too often we have this impermanence because of cell phones and everything else. And I don't know if you could see it down here, but I wanted to read something from here. It says, if you remember this family, you will not receive an inheritance of any kind. It's right on the placemat. And my son Leo says recently, hey, mommy, if daddy dies first, will we get the inheritance? So, but
That's
it also says
incredible.
on here, we won't pay for college. Think about that.
Mm,
Mhm.
So, A friend of mine, her husband went bankrupt, and she said to the kids, "There's no money for college," and they had
Mhm.
6 kids like
Mhm.
you, and the kids invented a business on Amazon selling stuff, and they made $600,000 themselves as teenagers.
Hmm.
So why the
Yeah.
hell are we taking it out away? I'm sorry. Why the
Mhm.
hell are we taking away that gift
Yeah.
of challenging our kids? And Julia, to what you said, have them struggle.
Yeah.
Don't bail them
Oh
out.
yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. It is. But as the mom, it's hard. But it's to watch what the result is incredible because you watch them grow, you watch them fall, you watch them grow again, and it's even with each other or spouses with the same thing. Sometimes I have to let my husband struggle a little to learn something new. You know what I mean?
But
I
that's what I'm
struggle a
saying
lot.
earlier.
But it's awesome to watch.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is a rule of life. That change that we all
Yes.
want takes years.
Yes.
My son's about to turn 13, and the rhythms over 13 years I'm
Mhm.
finally seeing. And I say to
Mhm.
my wife now, "See, honey," and
Yeah.
she's like, "Yeah, but I didn't think it was going to take 10 years." But we just are so willing to quit as
Yeah.
Americans right now and be victims of
Yeah.
everything, and it's sickening. So what you
Mhm.
guys are doing is phenomenal. Thank you for asking me what we're doing, because unfortunately it boils down to common sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but it's also the long game. So here's another business analogy. I'm in multifamily real estate. You're not going to get rich overnight. It's going to take you years to do that. And it's the long game. That's all about the entrepreneur mindset, right? Transactions pay the bills, equity makes you rich. It's the same thing. My wife, for years ago, for 20 years ago, Rick, we were the weird family. We were the homeschool family. We gave birth at home birth family. This is 20 years ago. And everyone was hammering us, but we knew to stick in the long game. And the proof is in the pudding 20 years later when your daughter is a senior in college and she's an amazing person. But I'm telling you, everybody out there, like Rick said, stick into it in
Mhm.
the long game. Know what you want. Have the core values set out. Live by them, and I will promise you that Rick and Gino and Julia, we're living proof that if you do that, you'll create something amazing. Don't listen to the naysayers out there.
Yeah, but
What?
Rick, yeah,
Yeah.
well, you actually took a situation, a very difficult life, childhood, and you did something about it. A lot of people will have a really tough childhood and just be broken completely for the rest of their
How did you
lives,
do that?
not even have children, not get married. I grew up with a horrible life. I'm not going to give that to my family.
Mhm.
But you did that. You took it and you turned it around and you did something so good with it. And so that's amazing.
How did you do that though? That's the question.
Well,
Like what switch went off in your mind to say, you know what, I'm not gonna be the person out there that is gonna blame my mom and blame my dad and
Mhm.
blame God and blame, because maybe I could see myself doing that, right? I mean,
well, not to get too into the political environment today, but I had a debate yesterday with my highly entitled nephew, who his $50,000 a year tuition was paid for college and 60,000 for grad school. Now he's got a big job that, of course,
Mhm.
he earned, and he's educating me on Black Lives Matter and why I should vote for Biden and all this stuff. And I said, let me ask you a question: who do you think's responsible for somebody's life? And he basically couldn't answer the question, and he started talking about the government and this and that. I said, if every person, rich, poor, black, white, and green, decided to take responsibility,
Mhm.
that they want to be the best version of themselves because they want a great life themselves. Doesn't matter what charity gives them money or whatever, but if they just decide right now, that's going to change the world. Because my best friend Jeff, growing up, his dad died 1 month after my dad. And every time I saw Jeff, he's like, well, I'm a drug addict because my dad died.
Mm.
I'm an alcoholic because my dad died. I have a screwed up life because my dad died. So if you allow excuses as an individual to determine your destiny, where the hell are you going?
Yeah.
So I think our society has shifted from a can-do spirit, like we woke up in World War II and we had
Mhm.
housewives making airplanes,
Mhm.
to a culture of victimhood.
Yeah.
Who can be the bigger victim? So to answer your question, Gino, I think it boils down to individuals deciding for themselves that they're going to get up early in the morning, they're going to make shit happen in the world, and they're going to create a great life. And that's going to cascade. And what does that mean? It means I'm going to find the right spouse.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just knock up some woman or whatever. I'm going to make sure that when I get married, it's for life.
Yeah.
That changes who you marry, right? I'm going to
Mhm.
make sure that I'm saving money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't care what side of the fence you sit on. Personal responsibility, which is what America was founded on, is gone. And if we could bring it back with what you guys are doing with your, I love your website. I spent about an hour and 10 minutes on it at double speed. It was pretty fun.
I speak fast enough. You want to speak? You want to hear me double speed? I don't know if you're gonna even understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
But really, Rick, like you're 13 years old. Who gave you that message? Because that's just because I had to read it in a book. T. Harv Eker. I'm 38 years old. I was always responsible. But when I was back in the Great Recession, back in 2008, I pick up the book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and he's talking all about personal responsibility. The fruits are in your roots. It took me a little while to really completely understand that message, and how you at such a young age of 13 has that message resonate with
Yeah,
you?
this is really important. I don't know if people are going to, soften their skulls, but most people have granite head, and people come to me for advice all the time, and I say, "Are you an asshole?" And they're like, "What's an asshole?" It's somebody who asks for advice but doesn't take it.
Mhm.
And when I was 13, I got really lucky. I approached this guy who was a wealthy entrepreneur. I didn't know I hadn't seen this kind of wealth before. He was actually a friend of the family. And I approached this guy and we had a lunch. And this story is actually famous now. I've told it so many times, but my dad had already died. I'm sitting across the table from this wealthy guy. I only met him one time for lunch, and he says, I understand your plight, and I think you should get an engineering degree. And I'm like, engineering degree? I don't even know if I'm going to go to college. What do you mean engineering degree? He goes, well, let me show you what I built. And he took me to his office, and he had his name on the door of the engineering company. It was called O'Donnell Engineering. And I walk in there, and I was blown away. I saw like rooms of draftsmen, like with ties on, drafts people. Now I don't want to get arrested, so drafts people. um, and he said, if you get an engineering degree, it'll train you how to think. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, you could go work on Wall Street, you could be a business person, you could do whatever you want. And here's the key thing. From that day that happened until I went to college, anytime somebody said to me, what do you want to do with your life? I would say, I don't know, but I'm going to get an engineering degree because I could be a doctor, a lawyer, I could work on Wall Street. And my point from that story is, because I didn't have a dad, and I didn't have any uncles or any friends like that, I pursued mentors. I am a mentor freak. I actually did an audio podcast that I sent to you a couple of years ago where I interviewed 44
Yes.
billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say that whole story, not because I was lucky. I was open to seeking out mentors, asking them advice, and
Mhm.
doing what they
Mm.
said. How horrible is it, Julia or Gino, when someone asks you for advice
Yeah.
and they don't take it?
Yeah.
Well,
It
if
is
you're going
very
to ask,
frustrating.
yeah.
No. It, we do know a lot of people like that.
Well, you know what it is?
Yeah.
They got to pay for it, because most times when people ask for something, if they don't have skin in the game, once
That's
again,
true. Yeah.
mentors are great. If for the most part, though, I was coaching and doing all this work, when people weren't paying for it, they really didn't take it. They didn't take it seriously. Once they said to themselves and made that shift and said, I'm going to start investing in whatever this is, and I'm going to listen to Rick, but Rick's going to charge me $1,000 an hour to get on the call. Guess what? All of a sudden, people get it a little serious, and it shouldn't be that way. Because if you're going from a place of suffering and you see that this person is so successful and you want to be like this person, well, success leaves clues. I mean, Rick can sit down for an hour for you and tell you what he's doing. From this 30 minutes of speaking to Rick, all of a sudden, I know how to structure my family life. I know what it takes to become successful. It's pretty simple. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. We're not sugarcoating it, but you already have enough action steps from talking and listening to Rick of what you need to do to have a more successful family life and or starting a business.
And two, a lot of the people coming to us or whoever, they don't really want our answer. They just want to talk and they want to let you know what they're doing and they want you to agree with them. They don't want to know because it's too much work sometimes to change. They don't want to change. They don't want to do something different because it's a lot of effort. Well, how do you have a good marriage? It's effort. It's not, yes, let's get married. Everything's perfect. It's constant effort. Same with the kids' relationships. You got to keep moving forward. And it's a
Let,
lot.
let's talk about marriage. I think I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up. So one of the things my wife and I did, and again, I had the experience of all my siblings being married.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did, and I know it sounds corny, but I came up with a list and I said, if I'm going to be married, it's for life.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the woman to have these attributes. And there was 30 attributes. And everyone said, you're crazy. And I thought it was awesome because I got to say no to a lot of women that didn't fit. And then after I turned 40, my mother's like, "Are you getting married?" I go, "No, I'm never gonna find this list." She
Mhm.
goes, "Throw the damn list away." And then I meet Melissa. She was 25, I was 40, and I'm like, "Oh, damn." I said to my best friend at the time, and he's like, what are you so upset about? I thought you met the girl." I go, "That's the problem. I met the girl, but I'm having such a great life as a single guy." But but marriage is hard enough, Julie.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Why the hell do we make it harder by marrying
Mhm.
somebody that we didn't really
Right.
consciously think about?
Yes.
Albert Einstein says a quote. He says, "If I was given an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend the first 55 minutes asking more questions."
Mhm.
And so when a young person comes to me and says I want to get married, I'd say, "Okay, what are the attributes? What are the
Yeah.
attributes? What are the attributes?" And they're like,
Mhm.
If I fall in love," and I'm like, "Love?
Mm.
Love is the last thing I
Yeah.
look for. You know, this is what love does in a relationship. Goes up and down.
Yeah.
It's commitment, which
Yeah.
leads me to my point. My wife and I wrote out a paragraph describing our lives in the year 2060
Mhm.
before we got married. So it was 45 years into the future. Here's our life. We're living in a house in the mountains of Colorado. We got grandkids running around. We're sipping hot chocolate. The fire is burning. And when you have that vision,
Mhm.
you're not running for the exits the first
Yeah.
time you have a fight.
Right.
You're living into this vision. And God, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say God, but it's so simple, right? I
Mhm.
mean, what you guys do, yes, you have difficult days,
Sure.
but it's simple when the commitment's
Yeah,
there. In
definitely.
business too.
Definitely. That's so important that you said that because a lot of us don't realize that we get to choose our spouse. It's just that
Mhm.
simple. And a lot of problems that people have, it's like, well, yeah, of course. You should have known that ahead of time. But it's important to tell the younger
Mhm.
generation, you get to choose your spouse.
Yeah,
Choose wisely.
because
you know?
and you tell your older kids this. Because here's what happens. My sister's like, "Do you think my daughter should marry this guy?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Why do you think they should get married?" And she goes,
Yeah.
"Well, they're in love."
Mm.
I'm like, "Are
Love
you
comes
kidding
later.
me?"
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"What about commitment? What about work ethic? What
hmm
about his ability to earn? What about her ability to stay married?"
Expectations.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about maturity?
Yep.
What about all this other crap? Because what
hmm
happens when it's love at first sight? What happens with couples when it's love at first sight? They say 6 months later, "You remember how we used to be?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Because love's gonna
Yeah.
go. Love is
Yeah.
like sex. It
Yeah.
goes up and down. If they can
hmm
see the video.
So there's so much I could say to this because I, like you, chose wisely. I got a little lucky, but for me, honestly, I wanted my wife to stay home and I wanted her to raise a family. Not six, I wanted two or three, maybe, right? But from that point on, if she wanted to become a doctor or a lawyer, the relationship is over before it even starts. So I sort of knew what she wanted out of life and what I wanted out of life. And it's gets back to the business, right? Of a business side of it where you can actually plan. You can actually create your vision statement. You can create your mission statement, right? We create communities that allow people to become the best version of themselves. That's our mission statement at Jake and Gino, all our companies. And you, like you have on yours, you should have your own mission statement for your, for your marriage and for your family. It's really important. We don't think it through.
hmm
We're just going by feelings and emotions. It's not.
Which is
That's not.
crazy.
That's the last part. I always say high emotions lead to high intelligence. Lower emotions lead to lower intelligence. And if you can use those emotions to help you out, great. But that's only one of the three parts. It's emotions, it's also logic, and it's intuition. You need all three of those. But everyone nowadays is just geared up on the emotional aspect of it, not looking at it from the logical or rational aspect of it.
hmm
One thing you're doing, I don't know if you realize it, but when you make all decisions from a singular purpose statement,
Mm-hmm.
it drives so much. And so my wife and I have our value or purpose statement for our kids is we want independent, entrepreneurial, God-fearing earners when they're 18. So everything we do is driven around that.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes decision making really easy when you're
hmm
clear. If you don't have that clarity, how the hell are you going to make a decision? If when John F. Kennedy said we're going to send the man to the moon, it was easy to say no to things. What about this new material? Well, will it be ready? By the
hmm
time the launch happens, no. Next, next,
Yeah.
next, next, next.
Mm-hmm.
So we have very clear statements for our marriage, for our child rearing, which I just
hmm
mentioned, and in business. And you have a statement that you just mentioned for your business. So it helps to do what most people are not willing to do: say no fast.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So my son comes to me and says he wants to play travel hockey, which happened. I go, that's an easy one. No, 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 that doesn't fit the statement. And you know what he says? I thought you would say that.
The next thing is don't ask, because you should know that by now, right? So
Yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
then my sister got mad at me. She's like, "How could you destroy his childhood like that?"
No,
And I'm like, "Cause I'm trying to make a man out of him,
right.
not some pansy who's traveling
Mhm.
around the country playing
Yeah.
hockey."
Mhm.
By the way, I'm not against hockey,
No, I know.
okay? Because somebody's going to send me an
Yeah,
email.
that's all
I
right.
love hockey, just not in my family.
Mhm.
Okay.
I love that. And real quick, what I like about it also is simplicity. You didn't
Mhm.
mention that in the podcast, but I was going through this a couple of weeks ago. Should we buy a second home? I've got one home. I've got 3 cars, 4 cars in the family for the kids. It's keeping it simple, which is what I like about your lifestyle. Because do you have pets? Do you have
Yeah.
dogs? I'm almost positive you don't have animals in the house, and it's the same thing with us,
Hey,
right?
hey, Gino, I would say one house, one car, one wife. It makes life a hell of a lot easier.
That's good advice.
It does, but it's like you said, you can focus on the things that
Yeah.
are truly important,
Yeah.
right? If you have a second house, you have 3 cars, you have vacation homes,
Mhm.
it starts pulling away from what your mission statement is. And I'm just making it clear to everybody. That's what Rick is discussing, and,
Yep.
and we have sort of the same values. If you do, you don't, just become clear on what your values are.
Mhm.
Why are you buying that second home? Do you need it? And maybe you do. Maybe you feel great, but just know why you're doing something before you do it is what we're discussing. So you can plan your life instead of life happening to you. You're planning your life accordingly and getting what you want in life.
What you're saying is so important. Everyone who's listening, listen, most of the reason why we want a second home is because of some longing that we had in childhood or whatever. It's not making your kids better.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's making your kids more, entitled.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So I would much rather take those weekends and get into a money making project with my kids. And so, no, we don't have a second home. My wife asks me often about it, but you got to understand in my family, uh, my wife grew up kind of mainstream, like everything was mainstream. So I had to educate her on why we shouldn't just hand our kids a cell phone, why we shouldn't
Yeah.
have a TV in the house, why we should have family dinner every night. Nobody's doing that. She's like,
Mhm.
but now she sees the results of all that.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
she sees the destruction, the porn addiction with
Mhm.
these kids that are getting cell phones and all that. And even though parents know how destructive cell phones are, they continue to hand the heroin to their kids. And they go,
Mhm.
well, but everybody's doing it.
Mhm.
So what I like about you, both of you, is you don't give a crap what the rest of the world is doing. And if you're not like that,
Yeah.
you're going to succumb to anything that happens. And unfortunately, I've seen so many weird things happen. And just recently, I saw a speaker talking about just the evils of what happens to teenagers and cell phones. And
Mhm.
uh, she had just spoken to a group of police officers and FBI agents, and the speaker asked the crowd, "How many of you have teenagers?" And every hand went up. There was about 400 people in the room. And she said, "How many of your teenagers have cell phones?" And not one hand went up. This is recently in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And she was shocked. The speaker said in the front of the room, she goes, every single hand goes up normally. Why aren't your hands going up? And the police officers started telling stories. I literally started crying of the crap and the rape and the sex trafficking and all the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that they see. So why are we handing heroin to our kids? I don't
Mhm.
get it. That's
Yeah.
just, I know I suffer from a disease. It's called common senseitis. I think we all should, but
Yes.
man,
That's
Mm-hmm.
excellent advice, Rick.
My last question for you, Rick. What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish in the next 3 to 5 years?
well, your wife keeps saying things are hard, and they are. I made a commitment when I was 30 to form my company, and I want to have this company till I die. And I was mentored by Warren Buffett. That's a really long story, and if they want to listen to that audio, I can send it to you. And he said, I signed the lease in this office when I was, I think he said 28. So he's been in the same office for 65 years, and it makes life simple. My number one
Mhm.
value is simple. So
Yep.
I know, Gino, that I've been here in the same office, this same one that I'm in downtown Dallas for 27 years. I know I'll be here for 27 more years. And I'm just going to continue to make investments and build shareholder value. I love that. On the family side, one of the things I might do is I made a commitment to write 10 books. I'm 4 in. And what I might do is partner with my kids on different business endeavors that they have, not give them any money and not even loan them any money, but be an advisor when they need it. So I'm just gonna keep doing what I've been doing. I love my life and I like having rhythms and permanence. And I just don't think there's enough of that. So just if I could leave you with 2 things, it would be use rhythms and permanence in everything you do. And what does that mean is a goal without a rhythm is air. You know, you want to improve your marriage? Great. How about cross that out and say, I'm going to have dinner with my wife or my husband every night in the same restaurant for the next 5 years. I'm sorry, every Monday night in the same restaurant for the next 5 years. That's going to improve your marriage, right?
Definitely.
So rhythms and permanence, number one. Number two, have a primary value or value statement. And for us, everything boils down to simplicity. If it's going to complicate our lives, we're not doing it. And then, you know, along with that is the statement. You guys have a statement for your business. Have a statement for everything you do. Why not? At least it gives you a way to say no fast. So
That's excellent, Rick. I so appreciate your message because we all need to hear it, especially us, because we have a lot of work to do.
It's a tough message
It
because
is, but I love the simplicity, especially because again, we're looking at a second home, and
you just saved me $1 million, bro. That's
I'm
all I
not
gotta say.
entitled
Thank you.
to another home just for the fun of it. It's kind of silly if you think about it. I'm
you want,
completely satisfied where I am and what I have.
I have to tell you something really cool before we hang up. And you guys are, it's just a testament to my wife embracing this thing that I'm holding up. I take it everywhere with me, the family placemat. My wife is just outside of herself with this downturn in the economy and COVID and election and all this stuff. And she's like, we got to have a lake house. Let's move to the lake and we could, you know, do that. And so anyway, long story short, I succumbed. We went and we looked at a couple of lake houses about an hour and a half from where we are. And on the way home to hear a 6, 8, 10, and 12-year-old in the car discussing it. And they're like, we can't do this. And I'm just listening. And my oldest one, well, why can't we do it? And my daughter goes, well, because it's not simple. It's not going to make our life simple. And I'm like, holy shit, smiling ear to ear that my kids are saying this.
I love that.
That's awesome.
I love it.
I just want to share your story with all the listeners. You're, child number 7 out of 10 in New Jersey with a mom, and you lost your son, your brother, who was 4 years old. After that, you got the news that your dad had 6 weeks to live. He lived 2.5 more years, which was a blessing in and of itself. Got through all of that, started an amazing business, mentored through Warren Buffett, grew an amazing business, got married at an older age, I'd like to say, 43 years old, correct?
Yep.
4 kids, met us at MM3 through a friend, and one of the great joys of that weekend for me was meeting you and getting to know you and getting to know your family, getting to know your values and your morals, and just continuing the relationship along for us. We've been really blessed and really fortunate to get to know you. And I just think everybody, how can the listeners get a hold of you? Because it's a great story. And for those of them who are out on an island and feeling like they're doing something wrong, when in reality, they probably have common sense-itis also. How can they get a hold of you?
Go to businessfinishingschool.com and there should be a contact us thing there. That's probably the best thing. And Business Finishing School, we took all these concepts, personal and business, and we boiled it into one online program about 10 years ago. And several thousand people have been touched by that program. So they could send an email to me there. Thanks for having me. And by the way, before we go, you have to meet Melissa on one of these. She is the most no nonsense, simple,
Love it.
wants no attention at all.
Love
So
it.
you're going to be like, oh.
We will meet up. We'll get all the family together. We'll have a party. It'll be simple. I promise. I'll cook for it.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye.